I call this meeting back to order. Let the record show that we are no longer on a Zoom meeting, and therefore Mr. Ogden is no longer in attendance at this meeting. We're having technical difficulties, and we have elected to go to Facebook Live for the people who were watching on Zoom, and I believe somebody has sent out a message to those people who were on it. So unless Mr. Ogden shows up in person, he is not in attendance at the meeting at this time.
Thank you for doing that.
Okay, I believe the next item on the agenda is reports, and we start out with the superintendent's report. Mr. Morales.
Really all I have to say is we are working vigorously to figure out how to start school with all the changes that are happening to us again. And we met with the administrators this morning, and I think we'll have a plan and get information out to everybody before we can start on time.
Sounds good. Okay, moving on to the CFO's report, Mr. Call.
First is our disbursements report. There's three sections of those. On page 10 is computer checks written for July. This is one page of those. And then starting on page 12 is 10 pages of district written checks. And then starting on page 23 is the complete disbursements report for the month of June. It's those pages 1 through 19 of that.
It remind me on the on like the Amazon.com, what's the level of authorization we need to make those charges? Is it by department head? Who determines who Amazon charges?
They have to have a purchase authorization in effect before it can be ordered. And then we order, we have an account here, we control it, the district when we order for them.
Okay, thank you.
Usually they'll submit a PO, purchase order, to the system in advance.
Okay.
Next is our financial report, starting on page 42. 43 is our cash position by bank accounts. You can see those there. These are, of course, our reconciled account balances. 44 is our general fund, our reconciled general fund account, cash account 309, 775.41, CDs of 7,515,000, which the schedule of that is that broker accounts at that date was 251, which we have right in a CD mature and has been reinvested since then. So total of 8,076,018 in our general fund there. Interest and sinking funds, 1,179,136. That includes CDs of the same amount, basically 69 cents in the checking account. Cafeteria funds, 9,154.90. Special education funds, 136,233.93. Activity accounts, 382,006. Includes CDs of 310,992.60. And the schedule of those CDs is there on page 53. Capital project funds is our only CD, 81,117.10 is our turf replacement project CD. Schedule of that on the following page. Reindeer Roundup, cash balance 6,562.17. Our financial statement in a spreadsheet format, and you see our revenues of 19,636,654, expenditures of 18,185,668.
Hey.
Mr. Ogden is now present.
Howdy.
Good day, Joe. Joe, we appreciate your dedication.
Thank you. On the financial statement, you can see the total going across on our capital outlay items of 255,360, and there's a detail of that in the next page on page 58. 255,360 gives you the detail of those numbers, which are mostly the same as what we've had in the past. Financial state format, you can see our estimated revenue of 22,324,000 and our revenue realized to date of 19,636,000. Expenditures, detail by function there. Our budget of 22,183,540, and expenditures year to date of 18,184,605.
Hey Doug,
Yes, sir.
back to the expected revenue and our revenue to date. Do we have that much revenue coming in our last month, or where is the shortfall in revenue?
We, the biggest item is state funds. We have our final foundation payment that's gonna hit in August, or shortly thereafter.
Okay.
Accrue. That's probably the biggest item there.
I knew we wouldn't have many taxes coming in this
The
week.
tax collections, and I've got some stuff here on taxes here we'll go over in a minute. Tax collections is certainly modest. We'll look at the projection on that here in a minute. So
Okay.
that's basically it. And there could be some other federal, there's some consolidation settle-ups there and other items there, other resources will hit too. And all those federal funds, our consolidation amounts sort of settle out and get reimbursed. Food service fund, revenues, now of course we have two funds, 240 and 242. Our revenues in 248, 48, 308, and 242, 138, 407. Expenditures in 240, 956, 031, and 78 at 533. We are working on an analysis of the salaries that were paid. The COVID-19 revenue, the supplemental amounts were reported at 242, but the expenditures for the salaries were in 240, and we're going to analyze that and make an adjustment to move those back to 242 to get those properly accounted for. It's something we'll be doing here. We're working on it now, and it'll be done by next month.
But it'll just be changing the accounting, we don't have more funds coming in.
Now, it'll be moving expenses
Moving
from Fund 240 to 242.
Okay.
Ultimately, those two funds, the excess revenue in 242 feeds right into 240 anyway. So it's just sort of the accounting stuff we need to do.
Yes, sir.
And then the revenues there, you can see again on 848, 307, and this, of course, our revenues in 240 are going to be way short because the regular school lunch program was suspended back when we started doing that. We weren't a classroom, so that's going to be completely different. Now, expenditures, part of it is salaries were built in for the full year, and so they continue to be paid. Of course, we got the salaries getting paid this summer too, that go back to this fund too, so but I think we're going to end up, when we look at that budget, and then we're going to end up okay, not too bad. And then the financial statements for both those funds there on page, the 242 funds on 66 and 67. Our debt service fund, revenues of 1,315,033 and expenditures of 317,952. Of course, we'll have our debt service payments repaid on August 14th. So we got the bills on those, and those will go out then. So those will get. Capital projects funds on page 71. Of course, we washed down to, we carried over funds from 699 from last year, then we transferred the excess out to our general operating fund, which is included in there. And so we're left with just our field turf project, which is in SCD, so it's that simplified down there. And let's see, Reindeer Roundup, you can see our revenues of $148,106, expenditures of $327.27. I've been giving you details of those attached there on page 77, sort of the detail of the revenues. And then 78 is expenditures, you say 320, 727. And then on 79 is sort of a detail, you can see the accounts, actual accounts of the expenditures there.
Doug, will it settle up with the hospital be on this year's budget or next year's?
This year's.
It'll be on this year's.
Yeah, we'll, once we get everything adjusted and accounted for, we'll make the district's portion of, to cover their hole, so to speak, we'll work to a transfer from our general fund, which we've got a budget amendment ready for that to cover, and then we'll accrue the revenue from the hospital district to make it all balance out, which is like we did last year.
Yes, sir. I knew we did that, I just didn't know if it would go on to next year's budget or this year's budget.
Contractually, how long are they gonna hang in there with us on this? Is there a contract between us and them?
Interlocal agreement, so I hope they hang in there with us. It'd be tough without them.
Mike, I had a meeting with him the other day, hospital. Guy running that, basically.
He's still there.
I was asking that question.
We've still got slots open for kids signing up, okay.
Doctor, I had said we were working with it.
The next section, I wanna go over some, financial items for funding and stuff, and then I've got a handout to give you too, to supplement that there. And I'll explain all these to you. Sure.
You did. You want a copy back there?
Okay, of course, one of the big drivers of our funding is our attendance. And we're back to the, in your packet there temporarily. I've included, this is our attendance that'll go into our state funding for this year. You can see there's a decrease in our ADA from 2018, 2019. You can see at the very top of the page of 2,074.005, which was last year, and this year is 2,050.46. So it's a decrease of 23.545. And so, you know, excuse me, you might be wondering which campuses are attributable to that. I've included the breakdown for each campus. You can see the Perryton High School actually had an increase of 11.837. This is on the next page. And of course, these other items are funding elements that go into the templates, the calculation. Each one of these is a driver, so those will be inputted, and of course we'll project those based on next year. Perryton High School actually increased 11.8. Top of Texas decreased by 3.6. Perryton Junior High had an increase of 14.1. Perryton Kinder had a decrease of 1.7. Jamesville Wright Elementary had a decrease of 14.42, and Williams Intermediate had a decrease, the biggest decrease, 29.7.
These are real numbers based on actual.
These are actual PISD numbers, which will go into the state settle up for this year, and we'll include it in, we'll use those projections when we work on our template for.
Wasn't accusing you of giving us unreal numbers, but.
Right. So, and that's something we'll talk about in a minute, whenever we want to have a revenue projection budget workshop, which I'll be ready to do that next week if y'all are ready. I'm halfway there. I've been working real hard the last 2 days, and I'm going to show you what I've got here. And so we've got to work through the general fund portion of that, so be at y'all's discretion what we want to do.
Do you think you'd be ready by August 4th?
Yes.
Tuesday, August 4th?
Yes. This will be the revenue, sort of like we always do. We have that revenue part the first time, and I'll be ready for that. We'll have our general fund revenues projected and our state funding and all that kind of good stuff. In fact, I've got the INS stuff already to go over with you. I worked on that today, and we'll go over that here in a minute here.
Revenues, but not expenses?
Yeah, that's the part that's the last part, because see, the payroll part drives the biggest part of our costs, and we're still working on that, and next year payroll, we're still working on that, and that's the real time consuming part of this whole process. Okay, the next 2 items I have in there, one item here is, of course, one of the items in our action item is to approve our audit report for next year, and I included some little comparisons. The proposed audit fee from the auditors is $42,500. You can see that. And last year's audit fee was $36,000. 2018 was $32,500. 2017 was $28,000. And I sent them an email asking them to sort of explain that increase to us, so we could, we could have a reason for it, and then I included a copy of that email there on page 89 there for you to read in that.
Doug, did they have any reason for, from 18 to 19 was an 11% increase, from 17 to 18 was a 16% increase? Well, this is a tad bit above standard cost of living.
I think, to be honest with you, they underbid the initial proposal just to get the job the first time, $28,000, which I thought was a very good bid for us. It was less than what we paid Gary the year before. And then now they're raising it because they can. We don't have a choice. We're sort of.
Do we have a choice?
Not much of a choice.
How much isn't no?
I don't think, I don't know. We haven't really explored. There's not too many firms out there that would be able to do that, especially at this late day. So.
If we don't vote to approve this tonight, would it be possible to put some feelers out and possibly even vote again as early as August 4th, just to see if there's anyone else who can possibly take it on at this late date? I understand it's late in the ballgame.
We're a big school with a single audit, and there's only 3 or 4 firms that do that, and probably one firm only that would be a possibility to call, really. But we could do, yeah, August 4th would work just as easy, no problem at all.
Even if it's just one other, if we could reach out to them.
The auditor that James is familiar with, he was talking about him, but I don't think he's in a position to do it either. It's,
Maybe someone else will give us a low ball bid to get it for 1 year.
1 year contract.
Just flip them back and forth every year.
He's mad at us when he had it presented with me, it was.
They know what they're doing.
So, but I understand it's late in the game, we've gotta have someone that.
yeah, we gotta have somebody. I'm open to a change. I'm not tied to them at all in the least. In fact, I think they're really overly critical in some things. They're sort of too picky. Sometimes auditors can be that way. I think I was more easygoing when I used to be an auditor, and sort of understood things.
I know there's a bunch of them hit the office when they do it, and they are pretty intense.
Yeah.
Been through a couple of interviews with them.
But, certainly, it'd be tabled to the August meeting or another meeting in August or something, too, if you kind of wanna do.
Okay, yeah, if we can put it off to the regular board meeting, in August. I didn't know how time sensitive it was.
Well, they've already sort of got us scheduled in their fieldwork plans for the week of, what is it, the week of November 9.
Okay.
But one week, we're only talking about a week, and maybe we can make a call and just make sure we're still being reasonable pricing of things.
But it'd be worth checking out. We'll do some calling around if you'd like us to.
Yes, thank you.
And let's go into, the next section is my handout here for you. Yesterday, just the middle of the morning, we got our certified roll from the appraisal district. And I've got to make a copy of that attached here on the second page of this handout. And I've summarized this comparison here. Our certified roll for the M&O side of this is $1,033,000,000, which is a decrease from 8/31/19 of $1,257,000,000, which is a decrease of $223,865,000, or approximately a little less than 18% decrease in our values. So I think in a year like, remember when the good old days when we used to, the values went up and it was good, but when they went down, but we could tax on the lower value, but the state thought we were more wealthy, we got caught whipsawed there. But this year, there's sort of an immediate settle up, so I think we're gonna be okay. I'm pretty sure we will be. It's an immediate recognition of our wealth in the formulas this year, so within ballparks, we'll have the same amount of revenue both ways. The effect on our INS roll, so you can see it's 1,159,000, and I'll show that to you here in a second. But you can see they actually, the preliminary roll they gave us at the end of April, $1,031,000,000, and it only went up, a couple $1 million over that. So it was 99.8% of that, the way it ended up compared to last year. They came in really low and it went up substantially at the end.
Let me play my broken record for you again. Because of the Midway mineral properties were handled this last year, we should expect another fall in the coming year, and that's without the state bailing on us. So we've still got these concerns in the state, especially in the coming year.
Yeah, that all assumes that the state will have enough money to fund school for next year. They're experiencing about a $4 billion shortfall, 4.9 billion or something like that.
After being 2 billion plus, not very long ago.
Yeah, exactly. That all assumes that they're gonna make us whole, and then I don't think it's a certainty for sure.
No, they've missed it in the past after promises, so we need to get ahead of it, I think.
Exactly. Okay, the next section is, summarize our tax collections there. You can see on the very last 2 pages. These are actual collections from the collection reports. I got with Loretta yesterday, and she sent me her report through this 27, so I got those numbers in. So the July's numbers could change a little bit because there could be a few collections for the last few days of July that we're in right now. And then August is a complete projection based on sort of comparison to what we had last year in August and how we're going. So we've got those projections there. These all are critical in flowing into our formula, our funding templates and everything. Okay, turn to the spreadsheet there. This one here sideways. Okay, the first 3 years, or first 4 years are comparisons with the prior year's actual numbers, and these are actual end of year numbers, which would agree to our audits there. You can see, last year, we had an increase in our fund balance of $22,291. This is for 8/31/19. And our fund balance at the end of 8/31/19 in the debt service fund was $182,263. This year's projections are, we're going to increase that. We've got, of course, our values went up. We taxed at, there was an increase in the tax roll during the year. Of course, we're at an 8.5 cent rate. But look at our collection rate right now. That's the lowest I've ever seen it. This is projected through that projection for August there that I've done. It's below 95%, 94.9321%, which means that we have a lot of money still to collect, and it means there's a lot of taxes that have not been paid yet. So,
are you saying it's 95% rather than 98 or 99?
Yes.
At this time of the year, because usually it all trickles in.
yeah, it usually ends up, see, last year for the full year, it did over a little over 98%. And the way I've always done this, I've used a moving 5-year average on these percentages. So for 21, you got a 5-year average of the collection rate, so that drops that down, which, you know, in prior years, nearly like 2016 was 99%, 98, and those. So it ends up being my collection rate in 21 it drops down to 0.979. But even that could be a little high if taxes don't come in. You just never know.
So you're telling us we should invest in auctioneer services because they're gonna be used?
Maybe so.
Could be.
Okay, then.
Now, on the positive note, if we end up collecting, we should have this 117 number at the bottom would go up if we, of course, I realize it's August, but.
Yeah, but we're projecting, I'm projecting August collections here too. You can see there already, they're in that number also. So that's projecting a fund balance of 299,573. But you can see the value there, the decrease from, well, in this case, $1,445,000,000 down to $1,159,000, which is the certified INS roll there on the previous page there. So we're plugging that into the same rate, 8.5 cents. Of course, that's going to generate a lot less property taxes. And it goes through that calculation, and we're projecting the delinquent collections. I've got a 5-year average of those. We're projecting 10,305, which is the same. And of course, same with our penalty and interest as an average. And of course, our interest is going to be lower too because the rates are so much lower. So we're projecting next year at the same rate, we would, and our debt service obligations are pretty well constant. You can see in next year it's $1,365,500 is our obligations there. So at the same rate, we would decrease our fund balance by about a little under 115,000. Of course, this is using those same collection rates there. So to break even with our revenues and our expenses, would take a rate of 0.095090, which would raise the rate 1 cent. And so this is something that I sort of need to get a little feel from y'all on. I sort of thought it would be good to sort of split the middle between that, raise that rate 0.5 cent to 9 cents, and absorb half of that difference with our fund balance, and then make sure we have enough revenue to make sure to cover the changes in collection rates. So my recommendation would be go to 9 cents because our values have plummeted down, and we're going to be zeroing using up part of our fund balance there that we're going to carry over, and we know we have a balloon settle up down the road in that 2017 deal coming up. So.
Where are we in relation to the state's recommendation on our fund balance?
In our general fund?
Yes, sir.
Well, this doesn't have anything to do with our general fund. This is our separate debt service fund. So we just gotta make sure we have enough revenue to pay our debts as they mature, basically. And that's the thing. And we decided last year to which I think was a good decision, to keep that at 8.5 cents, which generated a little bit of an increase to the fund balance there. So, but we're gonna, next year, it all changes because the values have dropped so much. So, I sort of would like, and you can see at the bottom there, the detail of our debt for 20 and 21, and showing the balances that we have left to go. So I guess I'd like to get a feel from y'all, if y'all are comfortable with the 9-cent rate or not, or would you like to, of course, if we kept the same rate, we would be decreasing our fund balance.
By $120,000.
Yeah. That's a
And
huge.
even at 9, we'd be decreasing it by, so we could 760.
So, I know this is not an action item for y'all to decide tonight, but next week on the budget workshop, we do need to decide, because leading from that workshop, will lead into the notice that we have to put in the paper, which will describe our tax rates and all that kind of stuff. And we'll talk about the extra golden penny here later on too.
So basically, our options on the INS would be 8.5, 9, or even 9.5.
Yeah.
Because 9.5 would still be at the break even.
9.5 would be break even, but I think, to me, splitting the middle makes a little sense, because we're using part of our fund balance, but we're still not using all of it, that kind of deal. And you asked what the effect of that 1 cent is, and that's an easy number to figure. You look at our values there, taxable value, $1,033,233. 1 cent on the tax rate is actually 1%, which, so you would be 103,323 is what is the difference in the revenue that we'd be talking about.
What I was curious about, by adopting that golden penny and increasing our revenue by 103,000, is there not also additional
Yes.
state funding that comes with it?
There is.
That's not a burden on the taxpayers?
There is, exactly that. But I don't have that number. We'll have that next
number
week.
you don't have.
I'll get into the regular template stuff, and that will be disclosed in that there, exactly.
It seems like when we looked at it at the past, that number was about twice as much as the amount that's going to the taxpayers. So if we increase it by 103,000, we would technically be increasing it by 300,000 total revenue by adopting that.
Sort of in a
rough numbers.
Rough numbers in a ballpark, exactly. But we really do need to have that meeting next week. Really, it's gonna, if we go 2 weeks, it puts us behind in getting that notice out, so we have to have that published in time, everything like that. And so, there's not gonna be any reason why I can't have those revenues ready for next Tuesday, so.
Okay.
But, y'all let me know if this looks good to you, or give me a little more direction on which way y'all are leaning, and we'll.
Okay. Thank you so much,
And,
Joe.
and as always, have any questions at all, if you wanna call me on my cell phone during the day, or anytime, we can dig into anything else too. No problem at all.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Doug. Any more questions for Mr. Kyle before we move on? Okay, we're going to back up on the agenda. I believe Mr. Morales missed something on the superintendent's report that he would like to go over with us.
Yes, guys, the school board's decision related to Family First Corona Response Act. This was initiated when the coronavirus started. It will go until December 31st. And if you see, they have 2 different types of plans: the emergency paid sick leave, which they'll call EPSL, and you can read there, basically it's 80 hours of paid leave. This is because of the coronavirus. The next one is expanded family and medical leave, and on On this one, this is if they lose childcare, if their childcare is closed or they can't have that, then they'll also get that. The first 2 weeks of that one though is unpaid. But just, this is something that, like I say, has come up to that. The chart on page 7, reasons unable to work, it's a 1 through 6, you can see those, the rate of pay, the limitations, applicable leave and where it falls into, but number 5 is the big one. Employee is carrying his or her is taking care of his or her child, that's in school or place. So again, if the child care place is closed down, the parent has to stay home, or the teacher has to stay home, or the employee has to stay home, then they have that paid. Basically what they're asking here is the implementation of the CARE Act requires the school board to make 2 decisions. And the first decision is, will the school board allow intermittent leave? So basically that's saying in those 2 weeks, will they let somebody stop the 10-day deal and then start it up at a different time, whether or not we want to do that one. And then on the other decision, will the school board allow employees to use the employee's accrued paid leave in order to supplement permitted leave under the second act again? Because on one of those, it's 2/3 pay, rate of pay, and would you allow them to use any other unleave pay to make up the 1/3? So you just need to give me some direction on whether you want to do the intermittent or not, or we just say, hey, you use the whole thing.
Can you administer it?
You what?
Can you administer it the way it's?
I asked our person that does all this stuff, Lisa, and, you know, she said it would probably be easier not to do that, just to do the one, and then it's gonna be a cleaner deal for us all on the intermittent, and then on the accrued, I think she said she could do that one. But we can vote no on both of them if you want, and it would make things cleaner.
Yeah, it just seems like you've got a lot of, I mean, if teaching is still the objective here, we've got a lot of interruptions going on.
Right, and the other thing is, we have to create a code now, a corona code, to keep up with all this leave.
True, but if we think about number 2, will we allow an employee to use employee's accrued paid leave in order to supplement permitted leave under FFCRA? That's theirs. That's their leave to use as they will.
Choose, yeah.
They're gonna get paid 2/3 and use 1/3 of they're still getting full pay because of any of these 6 conditions. I go back to, 24 years ago when I got hurt. Work comp paid 2/3. I used for the other third my sick leave until I was done with that, vacation until I was done with that, and then I still get full paycheck. To me, that's something we really need to do. Intermittent leave, that's possible with management.
Well, I mean, that's gonna be the deal, is create another number or code in there so we can keep up with all this leave. Because they still have the Family Leave Act that goes with this too, where you actually keep your job for 60 days and you don't get paid, but you still actually get to keep your job.
Is it just 60?
No, maybe more than that.
So it's maybe a little longer.
Yeah, maybe longer than that, but, anyway, so this is a new thing, but we need to remember that it ends December 31st unless they reauthorize it again.
I agree with Wes on the number 2, not just for this, but any excused reason, they should be able to use their accrued time, that's their time that they have earned as part of their benefit package over the years.
But we're not telling them they can't if they don't follow this program, right? That's not what we're saying.
Well, with this program, they're just saying we, what do you call it, supplement that with their regular time.
And I'm reading this letter, I mean, this is, I'm under here, that the implementation of the FFCRA requires the school board to make the decisions. We've got to say yea or nay, whether or not they can do that. We need to make an affirmative
decision. Well, I'm good with either way, like I say, it doesn't matter to me.
Is this something that we have in action items for?
No, it's not an action item, I'm just trying to inform you now.
I don't remember seeing that.
No, what?
So this is something we might be looking at in our regular August board meeting.
Yeah. It's time to get heads up.
Heads up. It's time to research it. I would certainly like to,
Little more
look
thinking.
into section 1 more and try to wrap my mind around
It took us a
how
while.
exactly that works.
Yeah, and it's only good for reason 5.
Yeah, reason 5. yeah.
None of the other reasons on here would kick off section 1. It's just weird, but I always like number 6. Substantially similar condition. I coughed. That would be substantially similar.
That is interesting that number 1 is only good for reason 5. Okay,
All right. Thank you.
thank you. Okay, we are going on to director's reports. And we will start out with, make sure I'm not missing one here. Communications and safety report. Mr. Clark, do you have anything to add to your report?
No, I do not.
Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Clark?
Question. Cashless campus.
Yes, sir.
Is this something we're instituting a totally 100% cashless campus? Or is that just a term that encompass them being able to sell stuff over?
Cashless campus is the name that the company gave to the thing. We can call it whatever we want. We're gonna call it the online store most likely. But it's just an option for things. One of the biggest drivers of this is the Reindeer Roundup. They have customers that have requested the ability to pay with a credit card. This will let them go online and pay their.
So this is an
But it
option,
does-
not a
it
mandate.
does not preclude paying with cash.
No, it does not. Yes, no, we're not getting onto that political horse of getting away from cash.
That'd have fit.
No, we don't have a problem with that. That's just the name that was given to it. I'll talk to them about maybe reconsidering that name.
I'm good. Can you explain it?
Okay,
Cash limited campus.
sure,
Works
yeah.
on many levels.
Providing more options.
Yes, it's providing more options, and then it also will help with fundraising, particularly this year when we really don't want kids going door to door. But yet, we still want
Cash
them
support
to have the
projects.
ability to raise funds for their projects. This is gonna give them some different options for product sales and things like that.
That's cool.
Absolutely.
All this crazy
you know, what-
stuff going on, what are we at on those, we talked about those vape detectors and things like that, that came up earlier tonight, where are we at, or what did we decide last?
We had some discussion on that. It pretty much vaporized, pardon the pun, when COVID-19 came on the screen. Also, some of the funds that we had earmarked for that got spent elsewhere since then. We were hoping to recoup some things from that grant.
The
that-
grants, the city
The
grants?
grant that repaid part of the wireless door locks freed up some funds, and Doug has reallocated those funds elsewhere. So we were thinking about that, but I'll be honest with you, the more I've thought about it, I'm less sure that that's the right way to go. We can just,
Detectors?
yes, there's some weaknesses that I've read in some of my studies about those things. Weaknesses I'd rather not discuss with the public and let people know about the weaknesses in case we do go that way, but we can talk about it. But,
Has the cost come down, or, is that- I mean, there's been a lot of other stuff going on, don't get me wrong, but they were north of $1,000 or something.
my knowledge, they have not, but, I pretty much discontinued my conversations with
Okay.
them because we had so many higher priority needs at this time. But yes, that is still a concern out there, and we'll still look into it as funds and time allow.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. Mr. Throgmorton, do you have anything to add to the technology report?
Not really, I got a man down due to self-quarantining, and I don't know, but he's productive. I took him a bunch of wire and he's making us a bunch of wires today.
Okay.
Coach North tested positive. That's all I got.
Thank you. All right, does anybody have any questions for Mr. Throgmorton?
What's the Clever program? Have I missed?
The what?
The Clever program, have I missed that, or that's the first time?
It's a single sign-on thing. You sign on to it once and it, like,
Into all the platforms?
it can do a whole bunch of them. Like the science, for instance, today I was looking at the 5th grade science and the science textbook, and when you log into Clever, you're logged into your Google account, you're logged into the textbook and all that, and it ought to really solve a bunch of problems.
Single password type thing, that
Mhm.
once you're in there, you're.
Single sign-on is the visual thing.
Yes, I'd love to have that. Because I'm the guy that gets them in if they can't get in the 17 different platforms, so.
That was one of the complaints my girls at the bank had, the multiple sign-ons really frustrated them.
Because no one ever remembers. Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Throgmorton? Okay. Next we have the maintenance report. Is Mr. Camp available?
Mr. Kemp is unavailable, but said he has nothing to add to his report.
Okay. All right, Reindeer Roundup report. Okay. Ludi Pena Martin Accelerated Education Center is Miss Wills. Well, we're not
We
saying
can't assume that's what's going on.
Okay.
But she did have this to add.
Okay.
Can
you read that?
Yeah. Today, the Ludi Martin, Pena Martin Accelerated Education Center was awarded $5,000 from the Manning Foundation to be used at Frank Phillips College for scholarship purposes. We're thankful to Manning Foundation, Terry Simons, and the many community members that are helpful, provide great opportunities for our kids.
Fantastic. Okay. All right. On to Perryton High School. Mr. Sprout, do you have anything to add to your report?
Yeah, after I submitted that, I wanted to add, so I think if you'd let me say it, but, the maintenance and the custodian, departments here are amazing. And the school looks beautiful. I commented one day that the front bench probably needed to be repainted, and like 2 days later it was repainted. The grass is watered, it's mowed. This isn't normal in other school districts. I was telling you that. And what a great group of people. So I just wanted to make sure that you all knew that, just as somebody coming from the outside, I'm very impressed by all of them.
Well, thank you. That's nice to hear. Okay, does anybody have any questions for Mr. Sprout?
2 more positions left to fill, or is it current?
Two more teaching positions, yes, sir. I have an interview tomorrow that most likely will fill one. And I had an interview today that I was hoping would fill the other, but that wasn't gonna work out. So hopefully by this week, I still have one social studies position.
Okay.
And that doesn't include, some paraprofessional positions that we should be able to hire for.
Okay. All righty. And, Perryton Junior High, no one is here and they can't zoom in. All is good at Williams. All right. Wright Elementary, again, no one can zoom in. And Perryton Kinder,
He did let me know that he has nothing to add.
okay. Nothing to add from Perryton Kinder. Okay. All right. That takes care of the directors and campus reports. Now moving on to our curriculum and instruction report given by Dr. Rock.
Yeah, I decided to create a newsletter for the school board report, and I think I've provided a copy to everyone except
For Mr. Ogden.
you. Can you hand him yours?
Thank you.
Sorry about that.
I don't know where you were at,
I'm so glad you had one. Sorry, I left stuff over in the office from earlier. So I just want to thank the school board for accepting Mr. Morales' recommendation to become the assistant superintendent for Perryton ISD. And I gave a summary about my education in the About Me section, and talked a little bit about my professional experiences as well. On the next page, our district curriculum is the TEACS resource system, so I gave an explanation of the TEACS resource system, and it will be implemented in kindergarten through 12th grade. And we do have some trainings already planned for August the 4th, district-wide, for our new teachers who are new to Perryton ISD. We have a full-day training for them, and then we're doing refreshers for those that are returning back to Perryton ISD. So we will be at Williams Elementary with all the elementary in the morning on August the 4th, and in the afternoon we will be at the high school with Mr. Stroll, giving the refresher as well. Region 16 is coming in to give that refresher, so we're excited to have their support for the TEACS resource system. I included a little bit more about the learning management system and the process that we went through in reaching that decision to make that recommendation to the school board. Talk a little bit more about learning management systems and some of the other management systems that we also looked at. Of course, cost was one of the big things, one of the factors that we took into consideration on the Wisdom, and compared that to some of the costs of the others.
Are we gonna be ready to go? I mean, are we there?
Yes, so we do.
Technology has it.
We do have, well, I guess technology can answer that question. Will we have the technology available to move forward with the learning management system?
I'm a yes.
Thank you. As far as the trainings, we do have trainings already scheduled with Wisdom, the Gabbard Communication, and they will occur on August the 5th in the afternoon from 1 to 3, and August the 7th, once again in the afternoon from 1 to 3, and those are not optional. Those are 2 sessions that are required by all staff members.
And it is 2 sessions, not 1 session, and you have a choice of attending.
Correct, they have to attend both.
Both sessions.
Correct. Which takes us into the professional development. We do have the new teacher in service on August the 3rd, and that will be for district information in the morning. And then we are sending them to the campuses so that they can do the campus new teacher in service for them as well. We also have a self-study for some of our mandatory trainings, including CPR, stop the bleeding. We decided today at our principals meeting that that is also the day that teachers will be able to check out devices, whether it's their Google tablets or laptops, because they will need them first thing the next day on Tuesday, which is when the rest of the staff members return. Talked about the TEACS resource system on August the 4th. We do have our on-campus convocation, so we have 3 locations where Mr. Morales and I will be welcoming all of the staff members. That will happen on August the 5th that morning, and we have 1 hour designated to the convocation at each of the sites that we've already designated.
One question, Mrs. Rock, this August 3rd training half day, that is mandatory training?
For new teachers? Yes.
Just for new teachers?
Just for new teachers.
Not for returning teachers?
Correct.
Okay.
Just the new teachers, that's their new teacher in service.
Okay. Okay. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. So most of the district training is happening the first week when the teachers are returning, and the second week, August 10th through the 14th, teachers, the campuses have discretion, the principals have discretion on their campus trainings, and we've asked that they also allow time for the teachers to practice using the learning management system Wisdom.
Okay.
On the next page, I gave you some information about the Bilingual dual language program. after receiving the information and the research that was done in the spring semester, my understanding was that the dual language program was going to be implemented in pre-K through first grade. I took the weekend after the first week to do some reflecting, some research. I was actually up at 5 o'clock Sunday morning doing some research because I didn't feel comfortable with that recommendation, given that first graders were not given the opportunity to learn or to have a literacy foundation in Spanish, and they would be playing catch-up throughout their dual language experience. I also didn't feel it was fair to the teachers in the first grade, given that they would have to teach the scope and sequence for pre-K, for kinder, and for first to help the students catch up in their Spanish literacy. And after that, I did talk to Mr. Morales. I talked to the teachers, I talked to the dual language coordinator, I talked to the principals, and they all felt that the recommendation to start at pre-KK was probably going to be in the best interest of students. And also, that is a recommendation from the Texas Education Agency, is to start a dual language program at the earliest grade levels. So that just made better sense, going back to making decisions that are in the best interest of students. So we are looking at implementing this year the dual language program at pre-K and kindergarten, and adding 1 year, or that cohort growing each year thereon after.
Do we currently have the resources to do that if we were planning on starting it out at the first grade? Do we have enough manpower to do it at pre-K kindergarten?
We did have teachers selected for first grade. However, they were very nervous because there has been no training for the instructional delivery of the dual language program. So we are working on a reference guide for pre-K and kindergarten. We do want to involve first grade teachers in the planning process, the training process throughout this year. So now it allows us the whole year to prepare them for the dual language program.
So now we are just starting at pre-KK. We're not doing pre-KK and first grade.
Correct. We are
Okay,
just starting
okay,
at
that's
pre-K
what I didn't
and K.
understand. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Sounds good.
We are in the process of ordering the resources that they need to use for their instruction, the delivery of instruction, and for the students as well. Reindeer Roundup, I did have the opportunity to meet with the director on during the first week, and just excited about that partnership. I've worked with daycare partnerships in the past, and it just really benefits the community. So I'm excited that we are in partnership with the Reindeer Roundup Learning Center. At the time when I visited with her, she did have 44 children enrolled, and she does have capacity for 120. I understand she just took this position in May, and she had already grown the numbers that were enrolled. So she is a go-getter. I'm excited about her excitement and her passion, and I know she's going to do a great job being the director at the daycare. They also use the same curriculum that we use at pre-K. She shared with me that the district provided the curriculum to them, but there were no trainings. So the teachers didn't know how to use the resources that were provided to them. I reached out to the Frog Street, is the curriculum that we use with them. I reached out to my Frog Street contact from the Houston area, and he's already put us in contact with our rep here, and we have trainings coming at the end of this week for the daycare. Campus tours, I've been able to tour all of the campuses except for Williams. So I will definitely be adding that campus tour this week. And it was just...
Everything's great there.
I did meet Mr. Cates this morning, and he totally changed the dynamics to our principals meetings. That's all I'm going to say. So I'm excited, to have the opportunity to visit with the principals as we were walking and touring the campuses. We were able to talk, and they were able to give me information specific to their campus. I did sit in at the high school, the department head meeting last week. So that was very informational, and I had the opportunity to introduce myself as well. Community involvement, I have my first week, first experience ever being on the radio, so I did get to experience the radio, and I've been on the radio a couple of times now, during the coffee break time. Let's see, I've attended Rotary and Lions Club, and both were, they gave me applications to sign up for both clubs, and we had decided Mr. Morales had started at the Lions, so he would turn back to the Lions, and in order to have information for both clubs, since he's already Lions, I decided to go Rotary, so that we share the information at both of them. So
Very good choice.
I will be submitting an application for the Rotary Club.
I disagree.
We also did a Facebook Live for the community last week, which was my first experience as well, but I think it was very beneficial to the community, given that I was able to translate all the information, and we did not have very many questions, so I think we did a good job sharing the information that they needed at this time so that they could make more informed decisions for their children. I also attended the luncheon with the hospital director, with Mr. Morales, and we did discuss the partnership with the daycare and talked about some of the CTE courses at the high school that we will be sharing with Mr. Sprung. Our Reading Academy was a 4-day training, so I did meet some of the staff at Frank Phillips as well. So excited to just continue to have a partnership with them and build a relationship with Frank Phillips. Meetings as staff, I've had the opportunity to meet several staff members, starting with the special ed department. I've met with them, and I've met with our behavior specialist for the district. Like I explained, I met with the daycare director. I've met with the district instructional coaches. Great staff members as well, very energetic. I'm excited about the support that they're bringing to curriculum and instruction and the alignment as well. We have been in the process of ordering instructional materials. So I've met with our EMAT textbook staff member. I've met with the district bilingual ESL director and the dual language coordinator. And I've met just in passing some of the coaches and teachers, and everyone has just been a joy and have welcomed me with open arms as well. And then just a little bit about the Reading Academy. It is a mandate from House Bill 3. And we have started the training of the Reading Academy at the kindergarten and teachers from Williams. And that was a 4-day training, so there's a little summary of how successful it was. And we did have
Teachers from Wright.
Yeah, right.
Did I say Williams?
Williams.
I meant right, so it is right, because it is for up to 3rd grade, the teachers up to 3rd grade. I apologize. And we did have 2 administrators that also attended the training, which were the Perryton Kinder principal and the Wright principal. So they'll be able to support the teachers in this new initiative through observation, feedback, and walkthroughs. And I provided my contact information.
And let me say something about the Reading Academy, because we did do some extra to make that happen, and Doug helped us out, with funding on that. But I was really pleased that the teachers that were there were very happy they attended it, because it's summertime, and we did pay them, but they did think they got something out of it, and they're energized, ready to start teaching.
All right, any questions for Dr. Wright?
Yes, is there anything we need to do? I noticed you've on our attendance on what, the Reindeer Roundup's gonna make it or not make it based on attendance there. We've got a bunch of slots. I don't know if this is current on the positions that are still open. Is there anything we need to do is there a community awareness thing or something we need to do? Because we need to fill that. We need to fill the Reindeer Roundup.
Right, and I think the director has some great marketing skills. She shared some of the plan with me, and I think we will see a huge increase. We also have a roundup happening tomorrow for pre-K and kinder, given that we were not able to do that in the spring. So she is sharing her information with the staff that is helping with the roundup, so if they don't meet eligibility for pre-K, then they also have the option for the learning center.
We were making some progress, and then we got interrupted with the COVID thing, interrupted everything.
Right.
but we.
And she did tell me today, she was in the office today, she did tell me she does have waiting lists already for some of the age groups.
Okay,
So that's great news.
yeah, and
I know it's newborn and, there were a couple of slots that were zero availability.
yeah, I just say, if we can get it filled, then we won't be having Doug's conversation here, with the budget here, if we get it fixed.
Is she fully staffed now, or was she, when you get these on the waiting list, you bring them in, you get up to staff then, or?
She's almost fully staffed, so she does have the pre-K position filled, and she just received a resignation from the preschool teacher, but she has an interview tomorrow to try to fill that position, so.
So, and I realize the early classes are filled up, the newborns and infants. When we see stuff like, I believe I saw numbers like 14 available slots in the after-school program, is that 14 slots if we're fully staffed, or do we already have the staff to accommodate those 14 slots?
My understanding is that she already has the staff.
Okay, so we won't need to add staff
Correct.
to add those slots, okay?
Correct.
All right. No other questions for Dr. Rock? Well, I know you've been super busy since you've got here, and we appreciate your enthusiasm and look forward to working with you in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. On the consent agenda items, this time I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the prior meetings.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. To approve the minutes of prior meetings as presented. Any further discussion? All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Budget amendments. Doug, you want to text that, or you want to handle the budget amendments?
This is, I think it's pretty self-explanatory, but we have been making some loans to Reindeer Roundup, primarily to make payroll, and the food service fund, which we carried over a loan to them from the prior year too. Currently in the food service fund, we had advanced them $67,124. That's in like an intercompany receivable account. The financials at the end of the year reflect currently a loss of $47,849, which is the ones you just looked at. At the end, there's no fund balance left, so at the end of the year, we're gonna have to make an operating transfer between the funds. It will hit our expenditure side and the general fund and their revenue side to balance out down to zero. And we will only do it to whatever it ends up being required. Potentially, I'll put 100,000 there, but I don't think we will need that. But it's better to have it there than not have it there and being overexpended. The same way on the Reindeer Roundup, at 100,000 there, the loss currently reflects a loss of 172,621, which is on the financials. Of course, we have to make a transfer for 50% of that loss, so the same applies there. We'll accrue a receivable from the hospital district to balance that out to zero out their fund balance for the end of the year. So.
But as of tonight, you're not seeking a motion tonight, you're.
Yes, I'm seeking a motion for the approval of the budget.
Approval of budget.
Okay, I thought you said somewhere in there that you were going to wait on the exact amount too. But
Well,
go ahead and
when we do that at the end of the year, when we book, when we get the financial statements ready for the audit, we'll clean those up and then, but after that, after the end of the year, we can't do budget amendments.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. All right, and any wording? On the budget amendment? This is
budget amendment number 10. Okay. At this time, I would entertain a motion to approve budget amendment number 10 to provide transfer to the food service fund 240 and to provide for transfer to the Reindeer Roundup daycare. The total motion is for $200,000.
Motion.
A motion. Second. Motion and a second to approve budget amendment number 10 as presented. Any further discussion? All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Thank you. Okay. Moving on to policy FFAC local, Mr. Morales.
We have the agenda item brief here. Basically, this Cindy Zapian and Kathy Wilkerson had said we need to make a change in this policy. We had Fred go through it, make the changes. It's basically giving emergency medicine to kids in non-emergency situations, and they both recommend that we approve this policy, and I recommend that also.
Okay.
Who is the district's medical advisor?
Dr. Man.
Okay.
So for any over-the-counter meds that the school nurse may administer has to be with a standing order for that individual student in place for Dr. Mann.
So the whole deal was they couldn't, before they couldn't do that, I believe, is what the issue was, and they were trying to get DNA to do that.
You know, the previous wording is in accordance with a standing order written by a physician or licensed to practice medicine in the state of Texas. Now we're gonna change that to in accordance with a standing order approved by the district's medical advisor. So if I have a kiddo that crashes on the playground, needs a Tylenol, I'm gonna have to have a standing order in place from Dr. Mann for that specific student.
That's not the way I understood.
I could have sworn I read in there somewhere that
That
nurses were allowed to give non-prescription drugs so long as there was an authorization signed by the parents
It says,
giving permission to do so.
it says and, not or. One and two.
Okay.
Yeah.
But they both say and. Our
Yeah,
current
yeah.
policy says and.
Right.
Well, my concern is this restricts it to only the district's medical advisor rather than their own physician.
Physician or doctor.
That's my concern with this.
Well, we can table this for more clarification to make sure.
Okay.
That's what you want.
Let's table it, make sure we have the wording right, make sure we have the policy right.
It just seems like it's throwing you're putting a delay in the system here.
You don't wanna hamper our,
I mean, if
our
a child
nurses.
needs something done, you don't wanna go start looking for the forms.
Try to chase Rex down.
Jeez, right, yeah. Put him on, whatever, he's not on a 24-hour call right now, I think I'll tell him that.
Okay. Well, at this time, we will table that and, look at it at the next meeting, after we get clarity. All right. Mr. Morales, moving on to 2020-2021 PISD employee and student handbooks.
Right, when we, I was talking to Wes about this when we were talking about how we did this. I called PASB and asked them about the student handbooks, employee handbooks, and they said they really didn't need board approval because they are kind of a living document, but that the student code of conduct did need board approval. And the student code of conduct, we approved it last year, and there weren't any changes to it this year. But all this is for you to review, and I think we had them all except, did we not?
He wanted to make any changes.
But he's keeping his handbook the same as last year.
Okay, so
So
no
I
action
recommend-
is needed tonight.
No action.
Okay. But if anyone has any questions concerning the handbooks of any campus, we have access to those. Right. Okay. Moving,
I've got enough pink tabs on here to just be a pain tonight, don't I?
You have too many pink tabs.
all right. Moving on to consideration and possible action on the golden penny.
Okay, and Doug will probably join in and help me with this. We talked about this, last board meeting, I believe. This is the House Bill 3, type of legislation, where they would allow you a one-time chance to raise 1 penny. I think we're at 4, to raise 1 penny, a golden penny, to raise revenue for the school district. It takes a unanimous vote of board members to make that happen. And basically, we've already heard about how things are right now and how much money we need to run the school district. This would be something that could make us financially more stable with what's coming ahead of us.
Couple of highlights here, as I said earlier, in addition to the extra 100,000 in revenue we would get additional money from the state, which we think is around 200,000. So $100,000 impact on our tax roll increases our school budget by 300,000. And then another highlight, and correct me if I'm wrong, that I remember from previous discussion on this at meetings, is due to the compressed tax rate and the plan for it, even though if we voted for it, we would be going up 1 cent on the golden penny, our tax rate will still be lower than last year because we are automatically going down this year. Is that correct?
Our current tax rate's 97 cents. With the compression and adding the 1 cent, we're gonna be 96 and some change. So it's gonna be a decrease, basically.
Even with the one
with
cent
adding the
golden
1
penny that
cent.
we would be voting for, it would still be less than our M&O for last year.
Yes.
And Monty's right on the split on the additional state revenue.
It's approximately the ballpark, yes.
So moved. Second.
Got a motion and a second to, accept the golden penny on our tax rate. Is that the right wording?
Yeah.
Okay. Got a motion and a second to approve, the golden penny on our M&O tax rate. Is there any further discussion?
James, can we be really clear in the paper that the tax rate is not going up? Okay.
Might even take a phone call, just to make sure they heard it right.
Any further discussion? All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Mike, you gotta put your name on this as well. All right. And then, consideration and possible action on personal contracts.
Yeah, the below teachers have met the requirement to receive a 1-year intern certification. I support the recommendation of administration below for personnel to receive 1 year renewable on their probationary contracts. And this is Amanda Manross, right teacher, Shannon Suter, right teacher, and Maribel Caruso, right teacher.
Okay. This time I'd entertain a motion to approve the recommendations of the 3 teachers mentioned to have an additional year on their probationary contracts.
So moved.
I got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Consideration and possible action on ESC Region 16 contracts for 2020-2021.
Okay, if you look at the contracts there, this is what we did Region 16 and what some of them are. We did add one, this Edge of Hero wasn't on before, 3,000. And this is for all the in-services that are done, virtually, and give certificates, and basically it keeps the teachers from having to sit through a lot of in-services and be able to, virtually saves the teachers a lot of time, and it's a good way to record whether or not they pass, because it does give them a certificate after they looked at. Any of the others, I think we had the teaks before, which, you know, Dr. Rock was talking about earlier, that were really gonna hit hard. And, I believe this is pretty close to the same amount that we had last year on the contract with Region 16 and Emerald.
On the Edgy Hero that you mentioned, the addition of the $3,100, were those, classes that teachers were going to the, support center to take the classes before?
No, these are done like the bloodborne pathogens they gotta do every year, suicide, I mean, there's, I don't know how many of them, Dr. Rock, how many
There's
there are.
several, it depends on the position that the teacher has in the district for the mandatory training. It's mandatory training.
It's a mandatory state training, we can't get out of it,
So it's something we already did online, this is just another way to go around it.
another way to go at it, and to record it, document it.
We didn't have the documentation that they had completed their trainings, so this adds a certificate of completion.
Okay. All right.
Just because those watching over me here, are all these Region 16 services something that we are required to do, have to do, should do? There are choices, are these choices that the district makes?
Yeah, these are choices the district's made, and they've made them just about forever. Really what happens is it saves you personnel, because if you had to do all this stuff yourself, it would cost you a lot more money to have these people do it. Just like, the one I'm thinking about is our business, one that we do, looks like a lot of money, but it's really not that much, because Doug does a lot for us already, but they do help us out. So really, everything that they do for all the other school districts, but they take that money a little bit from each school district to have the people to do that. Like the federal program stuff, if we had to have somebody just doing that, and state fund. So I really think most of these are pretty essential. The DMAC is again, it's another thing to help us keep up with, students and how they perform, and it helps the teachers also keep up with students how they perform.
So I guess what I'm asking, are these programs are currently being used, how long has it been since we've reviewed this list?
I reviewed it twice, I think this year, but
Okay, but,
here, no, I know what you're talking about. You're talking about other programs, and Dr. Walken already talked about it. We have a lot of programs in our district that we need to look at,
yeah,
to see if they're actually being used.
yeah.
These are being used by Region 16, I can tell you that, but we do have some programs that maybe aren't being used very well that we need to, stop having.
So every one of these are programs that we need, and by using the resources of Region 16, we are saving money,
Yeah.
having them handle these trainings.
Rather than having personnel in our district to do that.
I don't have a problem with it as long as those things are needs. Sometimes you get those legacy things, where you start software programs, and you have if you don't keep tabs on them, they just kind of.
Done them every
Yes,
year, and we're
yeah.
just gonna, yeah.
But
I think, Doug, you could probably correct me, but I think it's been cleaned up over the last 3 years, hasn't it, this?
Contracts, yeah, but of course, the federal programs is paid out of Title I, so, and there's another one paid out of, Title II too. And I think we've actually dropped the remotes, I'm going by memory, but the remote broadcasts, we dropped that one. And I think the only new one in this is that Edgy Hero.
Yeah, that's the only new one that was this year.
We added the bilingual too, because we did not have that.
Oh, we didn't have that
Yes,
one?
we added the
Oh,
bilingual.
because of our
yes.
bilingual
Then we
program.
used to have them from our internet too, about that.
Of course, the Texas, the big part of that is the student side of that, and then the business side is a prorated deal between function 11 and function 41, so it's, we couldn't get by without that, so.
Okay. All right. This time, I would entertain a motion to approve the district contracts with Region 16 as presented.
Motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the district contracts with Region 16 as presented. Any further discussion? All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Okay, this consideration and possible action on financial audit for fiscal year 2020. We have agreed to table that until at least our called meeting that we intend to have on August 4th, and potentially until our regular board meeting in August. We are tabling that at this time. Meeting adjourned.
Can I just make a comment? I don't know if y'all tried to watch your meeting on Zoom or Facebook. The audio is awful. People only pick up every so many words. The paper rattling, when y'all turn away, the audio is just awful. You should consider some kind of microphones if you're gonna continue to do that, so that the public can really hear your meeting. You should go back and try to watch it.